10,000 guests have already visited churches for the first time this year because of the step-by-step plan you are about to learn.
And we get it. Paid ads are intimidating.
Which is why we've got paid ads expert Brady Sticker on the show today.
We'll be asking him about ad targeting, creative, budget, and everything else you need to know to set up your first online campaign for your church.
Let's dive in. Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Sticker, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host, it's Alexander Mills.
Hello, hello.
We're also joined by Brady Sticker of churchcandy.com. Brady, welcome to the show.
What is up? Brady and Alex, long-time listener, first-time guest. Super excited to be here.
Well, let's get it right out of the way. Let's get it right out of the way.
Two shearers. Two shearers.
I just
2 weeks
feel
ago.
like, this is a small church space, and it's even smaller when we're talking about communications and media. And then Brady Sticker enters the fold. We've got a Brady Shearer already. I mean, I feel like we might have to have a WrestleMania type duel here to figure out who gets to keep the BS name, because it's not just Brady. It's Brady S-E-R with the last name. It's tough.
Same amount of syllables and everything. Brady, I'm not going to lie. Whenever I first started getting into the space, I was this close to going by my middle name, James, but I didn't want to make that switch. And funny enough, I still have people confuse me for you today because you've obviously been doing this a lot longer than I have. So I'll go to events and church conferences and things like, oh yeah, from Pro Church Tools. It's like, no, that Brady is awesome. Not me, different Brady. But all with the same mission, to help churches thrive through social media.
You would think the beard might give it away, the different color hair, but alas.
It is nice to have you on the show so that the whole internet now knows we're on the same team. That the two Brady S's are not mortal enemies. And so if and when you get confused, which surely you have and surely you will continue to be confused, it's no offense. We're all working towards the same goal here.
Well, we had a problem for so long with companies that were called Pro Church this and Pro Church that, or Pro Church. There was a company called Pro Church that was sold, and they were like, we're not going to go by this name anymore. And then I was Googling yesterday, and there's a new Pro Church.
Oh.
They just assumed the name. They went from a printing company for churches to a hiring company for churches.
Okay.
But shouts to our friends over at Church Media Squad on their acquisition of Pro Church Media and their recent renaming of it.
There you go.
Because the confusion, and I always thought to myself, well, my name at least will stand alone. Except it won't. But that's okay. Brady, we wanted to bring you on the show because I saw a recent Instagram story of yours. You had posted that something around 10,000 new visitors had attended Easter this year, connected to ads that you ran for these churches. Easter's in the rear view now, so I wanted to do a bit of reflection on it. Tell me a bit about your approach to Easter this year.
Yeah, man. So we help churches get new guests with Facebook and Instagram ads. That's the main platform that we've been using. And so for this year, whenever it comes to helping churches actually get people through the door whenever it comes to social media ads, the biggest thing we've been doing are plan your visit ads. And this is not something new. I actually first heard about this actually on this podcast back in 2018. And that strategy is still good today in 2024 and truly, I believe, beyond. So one of the things that we found that does really well is instead of having to have churches have a plan your visit page on their website, Facebook and Instagram will let you run what's called a lead ad. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but instead of having to send traffic to a website to gather people's information, you can send them to a lead form. So this allows people to plan a visit to a church without having to even leave the Instagram or Facebook platform, because Instagram and Facebook, if you've seen the documentary, I think it's The Social Dilemma that was on Netflix a few years back, one of the things that I really took away from that documentary was the longer people stay on these social platforms, the more money the social platforms make, right? They really prioritize keeping people on the platform as long as possible. And so one of the things that we found that kind of falls under that is if we can run ads while keeping people on Instagram, on Facebook, and still giving them the ability to plan a visit to a church's Easter service, for example, we get a way higher ROI for a church than if we were to have to send people off of Facebook, off of Instagram to go to a plan your visit page on their website and see maybe one of the wonderful nucleus pop-ups that allow people to plan a visit, or just a form on that landing page. We get way better what you would call cost per leads by sending traffic to a lead form. And so that's been really our main strategy overall, helping churches with Facebook and Instagram ads. And so that didn't change whenever it came to running ads for Easter.
Okay, talk to me about the anatomy of a good plan your visit ad. I think the feature set of using the lead feature directly on Facebook, Instagram, on Meta, that makes a lot of sense. You're removing barriers, you're removing hurdles, so people don't have to leave the platform, land on a new website. I remember when I first started running Facebook ads, about 10 years ago, one of the best practices was making sure that the ad creative you used was also used on the landing page that you were sending people to, so that when they landed on the landing page, clicking through the ad, they would immediately intuit, okay, yeah, this is the place I'm meant to be because I clicked on an image that looked like this, and now I'm seeing that same image again. So that's kind of how we used to do it. Facebook was like, wait a minute, why don't we just do this for people? They can just stay directly on this platform. What type of information are you capturing in this lead form? And then what is kind of the follow-up sequence from there once the information is captured?
Yeah, for sure. So automatically, Facebook and Instagram, they already have people's name, email, and phone number. So it's kind of a double-edged sword because you can set it to where that information is all pre-filled. So people don't have to enter in their name, email, and phone number. However, the negative side to that is like the mental trigger of people realizing that I am filling out a form and I'm going to be contacted might not even go off in their mind because they're just clicking through buttons, clicking next. And so we like to add one or two manually entered fields where they have to like actually type something in there so that people realize I am filling out a form, I am planning a visit, because we've all clicked through an ad or a link on a post on Facebook or Instagram, and you might not even 100% realize what you're doing, because we've done it before to where if all a church is doing is running a plan your visit ad that's just capturing name, email, and phone number, and that info is pre-filled, whenever they follow up with the people that plan to visit, a lot of the responses are, how did you get my info? I never signed up for this. Where is this coming from? But what we did to remove that is we just added one question at the beginning, which is, how did you hear about us? Which is kind of a silly question because they're clicking on an ad on Instagram or on Facebook. And so we kind of know like how they heard about us, but just by making that a required field to where they have to type in the answer of Facebook and Instagram, the number of plan your visits did drop, but the quality dramatically improved to where the people that actually did plan a visit, they knew what they were doing to actually like fill out a form and plan a visit. So if a church has multiple campuses or service times, obviously we'll give that as information that they can select, choose a campus, choose a service time. And then we also like to ask, how did you hear about us? And my team calls it a stupid question because a lot of the times churches don't even care to know that information because we know it's from Facebook or Instagram. But from there, what'll happen is a church would get notified saying, hey, such and such just planned a visit. And we'll use a text sequence that'll send them a text that doesn't look super automated, right? It's coming from a person, typically the pastor or connections director, lead, someone on their team. And it'll say, hey, Brady, this is Pastor Alex from Vibrant Church. Saw you plan to visit for Easter. Great. Can't wait to meet you. Quick question, how many people are coming with the Shearer crew? And so what you can do is just plug in the fields on whatever like text in church or platform you might be using to send follow-up text. Just like plug in the fields with their names to make it look like you're manually sending that text, even though you're not actually physically typing it out. But it just comes across as more personal compared to if you just said, Hey, this is Vibrant Church. Thanks for planning your visit. We can't wait to meet you. See you Sunday, right? If you can generate a response via text, we've seen a higher show rate of people that actually plan a visit. And then from there, just like text back and forth with them, have a conversation, connect with them just as if they were to walk through your doors on a Sunday morning. Take that opportunity to connect with them just a step before. I think it was Carrie Newhoff that released an article several years ago about how, what someone pulls up on your church's campus, you have, it's like 7 minutes to make a good first impression before they make a decision on whether they're coming back again next week, right? You might have heard something similar to that. So this strategy, you're basically taking that a step forward and saying, how can we make a good first impression with people before they even pull up on campus? Right? How can we make people feel welcomed, help them feel seen and heard before they ever walk through the doors of our church? And so that's where the follow-up comes into play. I'm actually traveling to Dallas, Texas next week to interview a client of ours who built an entire volunteer team where once people plan a visit to their church, he has volunteers that will call them and actually make connections with them rather than it just being over text or coming from himself. He recruited a team and they have scripts, and he basically built like a volunteer call center to connect with people that have planned a visit to his church. And so really what I think it comes down to is like how you follow up determines how they're going to show up. Right? Like, because if all you did is just send out an email and then a generic text from the church that's not from an actual person, a lot of the times there's going to be a disconnect and you're probably not going to have a super high show rate. But if you can really prioritize making people feel seen and really connecting with them and following up really well, I have some pastors that will even send like a personalized video that like they record for each person that plans a video, they record for each person that plans a visit. And the responses from that can be huge. And so it really comes down to being personable and really just making people feel seen if they plan a visit.
There's so much good stuff in there, Brady. We talk about that a lot on the show, is that the way we use these digital means to share the story of Jesus, in this case, to invite people to come to our in-person services, they're best used as a means to double down on in-person relationships. They're not a substitute for the in-person, but they complement the in-person. And that seems to be such like an impactful strategy for you, is to inspire in-person connections through these forms right in the Facebook platform, when folks are saying like, yeah, I want to come visit church, to create these in-person relationships before these folks even come to church. I'm sure that really contributes to seeing folks who fill out that form in the first place really following through on coming to visit church. But I was just having dinner with a Catholic priest last night, and in the wake
the Catholic priest,
in the wake of the Easter weekend and the Easter season, we were talking about church attendance on Easter, and how, our churches on Easter are often bursting at the seams, and then the next week kind of feels like whiplash, because a lot of the folks you saw on Easter, they don't come back the week after, and you won't see them again until next Easter. And so anecdotally and experientially, we know this, that folks, there are certain types of folks that frequent church on Easter who wouldn't frequent church normally throughout the rest of the year. So my question is, you're running these plan a visit ads for one of the most attended services of the year, but a plan a visit ad is relevant for every week of the year, every service of the year. So how do you see these ads performing during a time like Easter season or Christmas season compared to the rest of the year? Is there any discrepancy between how these plan a visit ads do during the Easter season compared to the rest of the year?
Yeah, so funny enough, you might think because it's Easter, this is the time when people would go most likely and visit a church, that's the time you want to run ads. But we've actually found that to be almost opposite. Because if you think about just the general law of supply and demand, maybe not every, but so many churches are going to be running ads for Easter and for Christmas. And there's like memes in the church space about seeing ads from churches in different states, right? Like that's how prevalent it is. And so because there's so many churches running ads, I honestly think that's one of the reasons why we saw across the board, we're working with over 350 churches running ads for them, that their results the week before Easter actually dropped significantly. The cost per lead, so basically how much they're having to spend in ads to acquire one family to plan a visit, doubled the week before Easter compared to if you look at the month prior.
Wow.
And so my theory for that is there's so many other churches running ads. You're way better off because like I've had a pastor tell me once that they wanted to spend, it was like $5,000 to $6,000 just for Easter, and then maybe a few $100 a month the rest of the months of the year. And I was like, hey man, you're way better off maybe bringing your Easter budget down to $1,000 to $2,000 and then taking the rest of that and dividing it up going into the summer, going into the fall, right? Because there's like, we're working with all these churches and it's crazy how we can turn on a Facebook or Instagram ad for a church on a Tuesday and they already see new families visiting their church come that Sunday. And this is in a random weekend in August and it's not Easter. It's not, and they're not having to spend as much money to promote their church as they would if they're only advertising for Easter or Christmas. And so I think the law of supply and demand goes into play there. And just keeping in mind that post-COVID, there's been so many people that have moved. I read a study, I don't have the info, but something over 1 million Christians have recently moved over the past 4 years. And a large majority of them haven't gotten plugged into a church yet. And that is a lot of the audience that we're seeing plan a visit to these churches. People that have moved to a new area recently and they just haven't gotten plugged in to a new church. Because I've had people in my Instagram comments saying, oh, all of this is doing is just stealing people from other churches. And that might be the case for some anecdotal instances, but I see the majority of the people that are going to churches from these plan your visit ads aren't just people that are church hopping across their city. It's people that have some foundation of a relationship with Jesus. Maybe they went to church when they were kids or they moved recently. They have some seed that was planted, but they're just not connected to a church anywhere right now. And so all in all, I really think that you're better off if you're going to run ads for your church, don't just do it for Easter and Christmas. Spend some of your budget throughout the rest of the year just promoting Sundays in general, and you're going to see a lot more fruit from that.
That's a very profound insight. I think it's paradoxical when you think about it on the surface. You dig a little bit deeper and you're like, yes, this makes a ton of sense. If everyone assumes this is the best Sunday to invite people and everyone invites, and then there's 50 other weeks of the year where no one's inviting, hey, perhaps go to the place where nobody's inviting. Let's talk about creative, Brady. I don't find it very natural when I use my name to address you, if I'm being honest. I'm going to keep pushing through that. What kind of creative, graphics, videos, we already talked about links to pages on websites, works best right now for churches in paid ads?
Yeah, so a lot of the content that would work good for an organic post on Instagram or Facebook also works really well for paid ads. And so one of my foundational things whenever it comes to running paid ads is you don't want your ads to look like an ad, right? It's very like a lot of people in the church world, when they think, all right, we're going to spend some money promoting our church. Let's pull out our Sony FX3 that we use for live streaming. I've got my fancy DSLR that I'm using right now. They use the fancy equipment and they film it like it's a church announcement video. And they've got the commercial royalty-free background music. They got the lower third with the pastor's name. And they're filming a commercial to run it as an ad on social media. And we use the term excellence as an excuse for that. But really all it is you're making a commercial, right? People aren't going to spend time watching that. You want to make content that people are used to seeing on social media already. Does that mean you can't use your fancy mirrorless camera? No, you can still use that. Turn it sideways, but you want your videos to look like a reel. You want it to look like an Instagram reel. You don't want it to feel like a TV commercial because then people are just going to keep swiping, right? What is it you say, Brady, all the time? The first thing, your first goal is to stop the scroll, right? And so same concept here. You want to get people to stop scrolling And then from there, just invite them to church. Just simple invite videos where the pastor is like standing outside of the church building and invites people to church. That works super, super well right now. Another ad that works well, kind of in the same realm of trying to get your ads to not look like ads. This is one that I talk about in my book, The Plan Your Visit Playbook. And Brady, I'll send you an example of what it looks like so we can show people. But you know how on Facebook, if you post several pictures, almost like an album, it posts it like a collage, and in the bottom corner, it's like +3. Mm-hmm. So several years ago, and this was not, I didn't even do this for my church. This was whenever I was working in the corporate world, running ads for a chiropractor. I took a lot of their photos onto Canva. I made it into a collage as if they were going to just like post all the pictures on Facebook. And then in the bottom corner on that photo, I kind of dimmed it and then added +3 on top. So it's just a picture that's a collage of different photos, and in the bottom corner it says +3. And so whenever we run this in an ad, people click on it like they're wanting to look at the pictures. But then what that does is it takes people to the landing page. And so the click-through rate on that is super, super high. And I'm going to be honest, it's a little gimmicky. It really is. In the marketing world, you would call that like black hat marketing. That's not today in 2024. That's not my favorite ad to run. But gosh darn it, does it work so good still? Like we'll run ads side by side, and I keep telling my team, like we do something in our team meetings every Monday called Show and Tell, where we like show new ads and new creatives that are working. That way we can test them on other churches. The whole reason why we started doing Show and Tell is so we could get away and find ads that work other than the collage image. But until it stops working, we're going to stop suggesting it to churches to use. It all comes down to, you don't want your ads to look like ads. When I was a kid, I loved watching TV and cartoons, and I was so excited. I don't know if you guys had like a DVR like TiVo. And whenever TiVo came out, I was able to fast forward the commercials. And like young Brady Sticker loved it because I didn't have to watch the ads anymore. I could just skip through them. And that kind of conditioned to me now as an adult, when I'm on Instagram, when I'm on TikTok or Facebook, and I see an ad, if it looks like someone's trying to sell me something, I just immediately stop scrolling. So anytime you're trying to come up with paid ads, you want to almost sneak onto people's timelines. And some of the best ads don't look like ads. If people feel like they're trying to get sold to, they're not even going to watch the content.
Yeah, we've talked about this recently on a couple of episodes, but also I did a reel about it. That was one of our more well-watched reels on TikTok lately. And it was highlighting this new stock photo site called dupephotos.com. Dupe as in like, a copycat of something. And the woman that was promoting the platform on TikTok was like, hey, we're tired of Unsplash. Unsplash stock photos, they don't look authentic and genuine. So we made a site that does make photos that are stock look authentic and genuine. And I was like, wait a minute, Unsplash was created because stock photos from the glossy corporate aesthetic didn't feel authentic and genuine. And it's this like cat and mouse game, really, between marketers and like the general population, because the general population will kind of like decide collectively, this is what an authentic and genuine creative expression looks like. This is not salesy. It's not, phony. It's not staged. It's not scripted. This is like real. And then marketers will be like, I will make my thing look like your thing.
Yes.
And then we do that so much, and it works, and it's great, that then the general population will be like, we have developed a new thing. I got a question on a YouTube video today, and the person was just like baffled. They're like, okay, Brady, you got to help me understand this. Like, what is the trend about? The pastors are sitting in their cars, like talking to their phones and then posting on social. Like, can we just like up our production quality? Was kind of like the inference in the comment. I was like, the reason that's happening is because right now, that is what we have collectively decided is genuine and authentic creative expression. When you see that, it doesn't look like it's staged or scripted. How could it be? You're sitting in your car. Clearly, you're on the go. You're in between an errand and a meeting, and you're just like, I just want to connect with people in a real way. Now what we're doing is we're purposefully sitting in our cars like I would normally be sitting in the studio recording because it appears genuine and authentic. And so what Brady's describing here has been it's what we've always done. It's the same reason why celebrity endorsements have mattered, because it's like, oh, that's a person that I trust. I know that this isn't scripted or this isn't staged because, yeah, I'm sure they were paying them, but this person must really believe in the product. It's always strange. This is a bit of an aside, but Brady, anytime I go to the States and I'm sitting through commercials, or commercials as my daughter calls them, because, she's grown up in a world without ads to this point. Psych. Ad-supported platforms have come to streaming, so we're back at it again.
We can't afford YouTube Premium at $20 a month just to skip the ads.
I mean, I got to downgrade on Netflix. I mean, just to it's the only way. So my daughter, she calls them commercials. We go to the States, and like every single ad has a celebrity endorser. We don't really have that in Canada. It's just like, get your Tim Hortons coffee.
Right. How many things can Wayne Gretzky endorse, truthfully?
Oh, yeah. Bieber, he lives in America now.
Exactly.
Drake, he's unless it's the Raptors, he's not doing anything. But every single ad has a celebrity endorsement in the States, because why? It establishes trust. But you overdo it so much where it becomes this gimmick, and that's the cat and mouse game. Sorry for the diatribe there, Brady, but I think you hit on a really important point. You have been hitting on truths that I think people overlook, but it's the principle that matters, right? Right now, a person that's filming on their phone, standing in front of their church, that's a great way of creating a piece of content that doesn't feel staged and promotional in a way that another type of ad would. That's the creative expression right now. The principle is, how can you make something that feels organic and genuine and not staged and scripted? You talked about a term, show rate, which I don't know what that is. So please define for me and for anyone else listening what show rate means.
Yeah, show rate is how many people actually show up out of everyone that plans a visit, right? Because anyone can just click on the ad and fill out the form to plan a visit to your church, but not everyone that does that is going to actually show up. And so your show rate is what's your show percentage out of everyone that plans a visit. We would love it to be 100%, but you also have to look at intent, right? Did they plan a visit because they searched on Google, churches near me, they went to your website and planned a visit? The show rate from people that plan a visit because they found your church from your website, just going to Google searching, it's going to be pretty high. Comparatively, the volume's going to be pretty low. Most churches aren't going to get a ton of people planning a visit every single Sunday just because they find you in Google. Even if you run some ads or have the Google Ads grant, you're not getting a ton of families planning a visit from Google. Comparatively, if you look at Facebook and Instagram ads, you can get a super high volume of families planning a visit from ads on Facebook and on Instagram. But your show rate's going to be lower. So you kind of have to just have this balance of volume where how many people actually show up out of everyone that plans a visit, and know that, okay, if we get 100 people in a month plan a visit to our church and we only have a 30% show rate, if you look at baseball and I was able to get on base 30% of the time, Brady, I would be a millionaire. I would not be, you wouldn't have to worry about me being in the church space also having your name, because the Astros would be paying me a lot of money to be getting on base all the time.
I was named after a baseball player.
Wow.
Brady Anderson, believe it or not. So full circle.
Well, my parents told me I was named after a character on Days of Our Lives, or one of those the daytime soap operas. So nice. I would much rather be named after a baseball player. But circling back to the point here.
It's my bad.
If you get a 30% show rate out of 100 people that plan to visit, that's 30 families walking into your church door every month. 30 families. And because I know, like, I work with a lot of church planters. We work with a lot of people that are going through ARC or one of these church planting organizations, and they count like pregnant women twice for attendance. Like, that's how into church attendance they are. And whenever you look at plan your visits, it's not individuals, those are families. A lot of the times we see the average number of people per family that plans a visit is close to like 2.5. Because sometimes it might be a single person, but sometimes it's a family of 6. And so every time you have someone plan a visit, depending on how you follow up, depends on kind of what that show rate's going to be.
Okay, now as we reverse engineer all of the different pieces that Brady's putting together, it starts to make sense. because he's intentionally injecting a manual form field requiring someone to say, how did you hear from us? Why? Because he wants to make sure that the intent for planning a visit is higher so that when he follows up, people aren't like, who are you and why are you contacting me? So that you can make good follow-up that's personal before the plan a visit date actually arrives, so that that show rate percentage, which really is the most important thing, if you get 100 plan a visit form submissions and nobody shows up, it's like, well, this didn't work at all. So all these pieces start to fit together. So show rate percentage, are you saying 30% is a good number? In your estimation, what's a good show rate percentage?
Yeah, so a good show rate would be anything above 50%. If you're getting more from Facebook ad traffic, right? If it's just churches that go to your website from Google and you're only getting 50%, then you need to look at your follow-up process. Whenever you're running Facebook ads, and let's say all you do is you just have a text sequence that goes out that's super generic, you're not doing any personal follow-up, you're just relying on the automation, 30% is like a baseline. Honestly, if you do that, I would be surprised if you get like a 10 to 20% show rate. The churches that we work with that get the best results, they're the ones like the pastor I told you in Dallas that he built a volunteer team where people will call and make personal connections with every single person that plans a visit. The way to get a high show rate is to really just treat people like people and make them feel seen and heard before they walk through the doors of your church.
100%. So let's talk about the big question on everyone's mind then. What is a good budget for Facebook ads, for meta ads? How much should a church be looking to spend? And how do we even arrive on a number? Because I imagine it's going to be different based on a church's goals, based on available budget. How do we start even answering that question?
Yeah, so it's a great question. One of the most common ones we get. And thanks to my friend Sam Altman, I was able to use ChatGPT to build a calculator that I put on our website to actually help us determine that. And so can I share my screen on here?
We'll put it on the screen in post, but for folks that want to go directly to it as well, churchcandy.com/calculator, I believe is the link, and we'll have it in the show notes also. But yeah, if you share your screen now, that won't translate to the YouTube final product, I'm afraid. Or at least if it does, I'm not aware that it will.
Well, let me just click this button and see what happens if I do that.
Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, it works. All right, if you're listening,
Praise God.
You'll want to go to watch the YouTube version of this. Or follow along with Brady on your phone. Go to churchcandy.com/calculator now, and then, put in the numbers as he kind of dictates them to you. Go ahead, Brady.
Yeah, so the reason why we made this is because if I was talking to one of the campus pastors or executive pastors at Elevation, their answers for this would be way different than like a church plant in Milwaukee where they're like 50 people meeting in a high school cafetorium, right? So let's just say in 1 month, you want to get 100 people walking through the doors of your church from Facebook and Instagram ads. And so the next question is estimated number of people per family that plan a visit. Now, like I said, we found that average to be about 2.5, but we get a lot of young families that come to our church that have kids. And so maybe that number is a little bit different for you. For us, it's 2.5, so that's the number I'm going to use. And then here it asks for show rate percentage. And like I said earlier, if they plan a visit from Google, you're going to have close to like 80 to 90% of them actually show up. If you're doing Facebook and Instagram lead ads with automated follow-up, it might be closer to 20 to 30% show rate. But if you can do Facebook and Instagram lead ads and have really high intent personalized follow-up, you're probably going to have at least 50, if not, like our church gets close to 80% of the families that plan a visit actually show up within the next 3 Sundays. So let's just be super conservative and say you only got a 20% show rate, worst case scenario. And then estimated cost per plan your visit form submission. This is in the marketing world often referred to as your cost per lead. Basically, you're taking how much money you're having to pay Meta to get someone to fill out that form to plan a visit to your church. The average for us, for the churches that we manage, the average is around $15 to $16. So let's be conservative and say it's $16. So to get 100 new guests, 100 people walking through the door, if conservatively 20% show up and you're spending $16 every time a family plans a visit, we recommend an ad budget of about $3,200. And so it's just, $3,200 to get 100 people. I don't know if I want to spend that. Well, there's a couple of things you can do. You can optimize your ads to get your cost per lead lower, your cost per plan your visit form submission. So maybe you drop that down and you really work on finding the ads that are resonating well with your area, and you get that down to $12. And then you really work on your follow-up process, and you're calling people, sending personalized videos, and you get a way higher show rate instead of 20%. If it's only 50%, to get 100 guests, if 50% show up and you're spending $12 every time a family plans a visit, you would only need to spend right under $1,000, $960 to actually get those people through the door. And so the churches that we work with, whenever they're not having a high show rate, what we'll do is we'll coach them on their follow-up process, and we'll try to equip them with the tools and resources to actually get people that plan a visit to show up. Because the thing is, they didn't accidentally click on that ad. They didn't accidentally answer, how did you hear about us, right? Like, because we have those manually required fields that they have to type something in there. There's a reason why they did that. And so we know that if you can follow up with them well, that there's no reason why you shouldn't be getting at least 50% through the doors of your church.
One of the questions that I had for you, Brady, was in reference to the cost per lead or cost per plan your visit submission here, because on the calculator I saw it said a good estimation is between $10 on the low end and $30 on the high end. And I was reading that being like, well, that is very, very low. And the reason I thought that was because when I was running Facebook ads for Pro Church Tools, again, like 10 years ago, $2 to $3 per lead was considered like very, very good. And the ads that we were running were pretty simple. It was like, hey, here's a free download, for a Connect card. Enter your email and we'll send it to you, which is obviously a lot less is required from a person there compared to visiting our church in person, that intent. But my sense is it's these lead ads that are happening directly within Facebook and Instagram that is contributing in a very big way to that lower cost per lead.
Yeah, man. A lot of it has to do with, because you're keeping people on the Facebook platform, I really feel like they're giving you favor there because you're not having to take people off of Facebook or off of Instagram.
It's a good old meta conspiracy.
Yeah. And one of the things that we've found that works really well, I know you guys are Canadian. I'm in Texas. Like, I grew up going hunting all the time. And if I was going to go duck hunting, I would use a shotgun and not a rifle. Because a shotgun, if I can educate you guys, you pull the trigger and a lot of BBs go out. Compared to a rifle, you pull the trigger, just one bullet comes out. And we kind of have that same strategy whenever we're setting up and managing ads. We don't just take one video, slap some generic ad text on there and let it run. We'll create dozens and dozens of different ad variations, have like the shotgun method approach. And then after the ads have been live for a week or so, we'll go through, and the ads that have gotten people to plan a visit, we'll leave them running and up the budget. The ads that haven't gotten people to plan a visit, we'll turn them off. Or if the cost per lead is too high, we'll turn those off. And so creating a lot of different variations is a great way to see what's working. And that's how we've found you can actually optimize your ads to get that cost per lead lower.
Thank you for the hunting metaphor. Really appreciate that. I'm a bow hunter. I don't hunt with a rifle or a shotgun, but appreciate it nonetheless. Something you have said more than a handful of times throughout this conversation, something it seems like you're kind of taking for granted, is that when churches are running ads, they have a follow-up sequence. But I wonder out loud, like, how many churches are running ads that actually don't have a follow-up sequence, an ad that just simply points to their church website, their homepage, and like that may generate some clicks, some interest, but it seems that like, because in every reference you've made to church ads, Brady, so far you've made reference to a follow-up sequence, just to infer that, like, oh yeah, of course you have a follow-up sequence, because that's a really essential part and piece of of this show rate is like having folks actually connect with your church and follow up to come visit your church. Another thing that you've said more than a handful of times is that you're running ads and churches are running ads on Facebook, Meta. You've mentioned Google. We had a conversation with Trey Van Camp a few months ago, and he mentioned that YouTube ads are working really well for his church. So I'm wondering what platforms are working best for paid ads. It seems that we've talked a lot about Facebook here in this conversation, but are there any other platforms beyond what we've talked about, maybe YouTube, platforms that are working well for paid ads for churches right now?
Yeah. So the first part is kind of what you mentioned is follow-up sequence. Whenever it comes to running plan your visit style ads, I wouldn't even spend any money on plan your visit ads if you didn't have some kind of follow-up plan in place. It doesn't even have to be automated. You can use Zapier.com to just send yourself a notification whenever someone fills out that Meta lead form. It sends you their info, and then you can just manually call them and follow up with them. So it doesn't even have to be automated. Like I recommend automating what's important. We automate our electric bill and our water bill because I'm a very forgetful person. So obviously a sequence would be great that's automatic. But as far as like what platform works best, Google, because they have the Google Ads grant, it is great. That's something that I believe every church should take advantage of. But the volume, you like have to wait for someone to search for churches near me, churches in my city, those types of keywords for you to show up there if your goal is to get them to plan a visit to come into the building for a Sunday service. Comparatively, Facebook and Instagram, you can just show up on their timeline and you don't have to wait for them to search. And same thing with TikTok. We've tested a lot of TikTok ads, and we've kind of just come to the conclusion that right now we're spending way too much money as far as a cost per lead on TikTok compared to Facebook and Instagram. So Meta is getting just way better cost per leads than TikTok for churches. And so I don't necessarily recommend it, but I hate saying that because like anecdotally, we were running TikTok ads for our church and we were kind of testing it out. And we had a family that came to visit. And I've since then got to know this guy. His name's Chris. He's fine with me like sharing the story, but him and his wife, like they weren't in a good place spiritually. He didn't have a faith background, but she kind of did, but they weren't involved in a church anywhere. They were like going through counseling and like contemplating divorcing. And they found our church, got plugged in, got connected with our pastoral staff, and just God's transformed their lives. Like I've seen them get baptized. I've seen them grow in their faith. And now he like leads one of our teams at one of our campuses. And I'm about to tear up saying this, but like, if we never ran those TikTok ads,
Right.
we wouldn't, that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Right. And so it's anecdotally, it's hard for me to say like, oh yeah, don't do it. TikTok's not worth the money because like, that's just one person. And we had several families visit from TikTok, but like, that's just one story that I know God made a difference in their life because they found our church from an ad on TikTok of all places, which might not even be available in America over the next few months, depending on what happens with the regulation.
Run your ads while you still can.
Yeah. And so, I mean, all of that being said, Facebook and Instagram definitely gets the best cost per leads from what we've seen. We haven't played around or tested anything with YouTube as of right now. But Meta is just, like I said earlier, like we're able to turn an ad on a Monday and the church already has new families visiting that next Sunday from it. And so it's a really quick turnaround time. And that's not necessarily always the case of what we found with Google and TikTok.
And that can be so encouraging because when you start a new campaign, especially with organic social media, which is, what our emphasis is for churches, I'm always setting expectations with the church on the other side. I'm like, hey, this is kind of like a long-term game. Here we're trying to achieve the 10x growth rate, a 4% monthly growth threshold. That takes, 6 to 12 months to achieve typically. So we're kind of like setting the expectations for what we're trying to build in the long term. I remember the same thing was true for me when I started doing Facebook ads for Pro Church Tools, in the mid 2010s. And you turn stuff on, you're like, email subscriber. You're like, man, I've been like blogging for 5 years and I've built something, but it took years for any of my posts to be indexed in Google, and then like 3 of them ranked number 1, and those were the 3 that were driving. And I built like an email list of 3,000, and then I did Facebook ads because we had built this company, and I remember going from 3,000 to 30,000 on our email list in like a year because I could take what we had done and just like pour gasoline on it, and you got this immediate feedback. And what that does is, especially for a church, maybe they aren't too familiar with social. Maybe these strategies are a bit foreign to them. They don't understand maybe the nuances. You start seeing results. New families walk through the door, and you're like, wow, that quick? Like, maybe this is worth it. Let's work on improving our processes. Let's make adjustments. Let's stay committed to this, because you said this already directly, Brady. Like, I'm going to run 20 ads, and 3 of them will be good, and the other 17 will turn off. We'll try 17 new ones, and we'll repeat. A lot of this is iteration. If you can get those quick wins at the beginning, that can give you encouragement to keep pressing forward. A little while ago, Brady, you surely heard that Meta made some changes to their policy. It was kind of a big deal in the church world. They were no longer allowing Christian interests to be specifically targeted. Now, Christians were not the only ones. It was all religions and also all of politics, a number of other things, gambling. Was this damaging to your approach to social and how you did targeting? I know targeting is a big hurdle for a lot of ministries. Like, I have no idea. Like, this is just a Pandora's box of potential. What do I do?
Yeah, so for us, we never really played around with we played around with it, but we never got incredible results whenever we were targeting people that liked elevation worship in Bethel and in these Christian interests, right? We typically didn't get the best results with that anyways. And so whenever that went away, it didn't make a difference to us because we weren't utilizing it, because every time we did, our cost per lead would go up because we were getting very specific with it. And so we have 2 approaches whenever it comes to targeting that we've seen be really fruitful. The first one is drop a pin on your church and set a 5 to 10 mile radius, and then set the age range between 25 and 55. For us, just doing that works incredible. And you can honestly do that and be set and get good results. The second approach is what you would call retargeting. So this is like when you go to Amazon and you're looking for one of those Shure M7s, MV7s, I think is what this mic is. You go look at this mic on Amazon, then you go to Instagram and you see ads for that microphone that you were just looking at. So that process is called retargeting. Targeting, again, Amazon knows that you are interested in this microphone, so they're going to show you ads of this microphone. And so you can easily set up what's called the Meta tracking pixel on your church's website. And now anytime someone goes to your church's website, or maybe you're running Google ads or have the Google ads grant, you can set it up to where if someone goes to your church's website, then they go to Instagram, they go to Facebook, boom, they see you. They see an ad. And we've kind of taken this a step further to where so many churches are creating short form reels, preaching clips that are from their pastor preaching on Sunday. You can do the same strategy with this to where if anyone watches 50% or more of any of these videos, add them to a custom audience and show them ads inviting them to church, inviting them to plan a visit. And so we've kind of done this process. And with my church, I remember not long ago, I was sitting at a Torchy's Tacos. Don't know if you guys have ever been. It's great.
Never heard of it.
No, it's from Austin, Texas. So they're really big in this part of the world.
We need to plan a trip to Texas. You and I have never done Texas. We love tacos. We love barbecue. What are we doing?
Well, I remember the first time I was in Texas, and I was driving into Dallas, and on the outskirts, it was like In-N-Out. And I was like, they have In-N-Out in Texas? Sorry.
Whenever you guys are ready, let's do a trip. I'm ready. I'll show you guys all of the things, the Torchies, all of it.
Sounds good to me. I'll go
sitting at this restaurant with my pastor. I'm sitting at this restaurant with my pastor, and this guy walks up to our table, looks right at my pastor, and goes, "Hey, you're Michael. You're the Vibrant guy." The name of our church is Vibrant Church. Yeah, man, every time I turn around on Instagram, I just keep seeing you. And I'm like, I'm sitting there at the table with my pastor, and the guy like tells my pastor, he's like, "Dude, whoever's doing your social media is killing it." And I'm sitting there thinking, I hope my pastor doesn't think that I like paid this guy to come up and say this. And it's funny, like we've had people come to our church that are like, man, like they've told me, Pastor Brady, man, I knew that God was calling me here because every time I turned around on Instagram, I just kept seeing you. And so I knew that must have been Holy Spirit telling me to come and visit. And I just smile and say, amen, brother. Like I believe God was calling you here. There's a lot of truth in that. Like I truly believe Holy Spirit can move through social media just like he can move through people. And so all we're doing is planting seeds, taking ads, showing them to people, and people will watch a video and now they're hooked. And every time they turn around on Instagram or on Facebook, they're seeing ads from our church or the churches that we're working with. And we're just waiting for Holy Spirit to really move in their heart and for them to be like, you know what, I am going to plan a visit. You know what, I am going to go to that church. And so it's so cool to see how, like I learned all this in the corporate world doing ads for chiropractors back in the day. And it's so cool being able to take that and applying it to the kingdom and seeing so many people like walk into a church door and find the Lord and their lives being changed. People might over spiritualize it, because I know we're just retargeting them, but like I really do believe that Holy Spirit is moving in these people's in their hearts to get them to actually like show up to church. And so those are kind of the two targeting methods that we'll use.
Now you brought to light something that I was totally unaware of, and that was another recent change by Meta that in some ways can be problematic for the strategy of setting your geographic location on that church pin to 5 to 10 miles from the radius. What was that change and how are you guys counteracting it?
Yeah, so they changed this within the past few months. Used to, you could drop a pin anywhere and set a radius and say only target people living in this area. But now they've done away with that to where you can only target people in or recently in this area. So last week I was in Orlando, took the family to Disney, and I actually met up with a pastor that works with us and took him to lunch. And one of the things that he said is like, Brady, you posted on Facebook and Instagram that none of the churches you guys work with had ads showing in other areas. And I don't want to comment this, but I think our ads were being shown in other areas. And I was like, oh my gosh, and we looked at it and sure enough, he's in Orlando, Florida. And so that's like one of the most, I think he said it's like the number one traveled to city in America is Orlando. And so the way to combat that, what we're doing now, is you basically have to exclude every other state and then every part of your state that you wouldn't want people to go to visit. So it's just in your targeting and so it's extra steps, but it's kind of frustrating, but that's honestly like the only way that you can do that. The main thing that I've seen from like churches that will show ads to people in other states is Zuckerberg will show them that boost button and say like, hey, for $20, you can show this to thousands of people. And pastors, church leaders are like, bet, let's do it. That's easy. And they just press the boost button and they think, yep, we're running ads for our church. And it's sad that you do that and you're essentially wasting money and you're just showing these ads to people that Facebook and Instagram, I believe, they'll think, okay, who likes churches? Who's involved in church? And so you're showing ads to essentially church staff all across the country that have no interest in going to your church. And it's a sad phenomenon that I see every Easter and Christmas season now.
I can imagine that would be especially problematic in a city like ours, like Niagara Falls, population of 90,000. Let's round up to 100,000. And they say that 30 million tourists come through the city every year. So that's a pretty smart hack of reverse engineering it, although it sounds to be a little bit tedious. But I don't know, Brady, I hope that folks listening to the show today are going to start spending money on ads. I hope that they're going to hire your marketing agency, Church Candy, to help them with their ads and to help see folks come to their churches and hear the story of Jesus, maybe for the first time. Like that story you shared, get baptized into the faith. Like that's kind of the point of all this. But something you write a lot about on your website is SEO. That's something we talk about on this show as well. And that's something that churches can do today that's free to increase their visibility online. So before we go, do you have a few handy SEO tips that churches can make to some tips and changes that churches can make to their websites today to increase their visibility, where hopefully they have a plan to visit sequence on their website already set up? So just by improving their SEO could actually translate into some new visitors at their church.
Yeah. So for local SEO, it's really changed over the past few years to where your website is less important and your Google business profile is more important. So the easiest thing you can do is go to Google and search how to optimize my Google business profile and just follow those steps. It's everything from adding pictures and videos to your Google business profile, posting somewhat regularly on there, and then getting people in your church to leave you reviews. I know it's kind of silly, and the comedian John Crist has a bit about church Google reviews, but it might sound silly getting people to leave a review for your church, but that is something that if you can get a lot of Google reviews for your church, that will increase your SEO rankings for whenever people search for churches near me. You will show up in what's called the 3-pack, which are the first 3 Google Map listings on that Google search. And if you can get there, man, you're going to start seeing consistent guests, and that costs you $0 to do.
When we were first getting started with Pro Church Tools, one of the digital marketing tips that I was given was, hey, it's great to ask for reviews. It's okay. And they said, the best way to do it is send an email on your birthday. Hey, it's my birthday. I only have one. If you wanted to give me a gift, could you leave a review so I would do it for this podcast. We've been podcasting for 10 years now, more than 10 years. And if you look at the hundreds of reviews that we have, a lot of those came from listeners where I just sent them an email and was like, hey, it's my birthday. Would you
10 years of birthdays.
I remember one time I was on a flight and I was like, oh, it's my birthday. I got to send an email.
You can literally only do it this day.
Yeah. Otherwise, I will not get any reviews. So, maybe you can take that same approach with your pastor. I know for churches, their number one social post every year is, it's Pastor James's birthday.
Yeah.
Hit and everyone's like, yeah, Pastor James. Brady, really appreciate your time. Tell us a little bit about Church Candy, because I have run Facebook ads. I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of my own money on Facebook ads, but we've never done it for churches. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because I knew the volume of churches that you were working with. And I can speak personally. I think this has been one of our most rich in practical application podcasts that we've done this year. And that's because you're in the trenches day in, day out, week in, week out, making changes. You're on top of the latest updates. We're more focused on the organic side of social. So tell us a bit about Church Candy, what you're up to, and the best way for folks to get connected.
Yeah, so Church Candy all started because I was a youth pastor running ads for my church because that's what I did as my day job. And then my pastor's friend reached out to me, and then his friend reached out. And fast forward a couple years later, we have 350 plus churches we're working with, a full staff of 20 plus employees. Similar to Brady Shearer, I hired my friends and people I went to school with, and it's worked out so far. So, man, we love it. If churches out there want to see consistent new visitors from Facebook and Instagram ads, feel free to hit us up. You can go to churchcandy.com. I wrote a book called The Plan Your Visit Playbook. If you go to planyourvisitplaybook.com, you can get a free copy of it. There's an ebook option, or if you want a physical copy, it's just $8 for shipping, and I'll send it over to you. This breaks down our strategy in very high detail. I don't gatekeep anything. And then give me a follow on Instagram. I'm trying to make some helpful content on digital marketing and paid ads for churches frequently on there.
Yeah, Brady and we really are alike, not just in name, but I love his approach where it's like, look, there's a lot to do here. So if you want me to do it for you, that's how I run a business. But I'm going to tell you exactly in detail how I do it. And we've always tried to take that same approach as well. So it's great. I'm excited to see whichever Brady comes next that carries on the mantle. The Gen Z Brady, the Gen Alpha Brady, surely to come in the next few years. Thanks to Brady, and thanks to Alex, and thanks to you for your time, attention, and trust. And we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Let me text my wife. Say, recording. We're potty training after, so I'm getting text updates every time we have a success. It is exciting because I reclaim $125 a month that I'm not spending on diapers. So.
That's big.
Diapers are so expensive.